I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact focused on personal growth, my Knowledge Workbook series and Creative Healing course can help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about why you grew apart. This is a tough thing for us to have to face because there are so many reasons why a relationship can fall apart or grow apart. Mm-hmm. What you have to be aware of is that there are certain things that we do that strengthen a relationship and certain things that make us become slowly more distant over time. You have to work on your attachment issues. That's a big thing because our issues come up in a lot of different ways. And those ways will just mean arguing, fighting, getting controlling, manipulative. And so we're going to look at some of the different reasons that your relationship may have fallen apart and why you led to a breakup.
So not all relationships end cold turkey. Sometimes it can be this gradual decline, almost like a sun kind of fading off the edge of the horizon. It's one of those slower declines. Yeah. And there's actually some research on this. Researchers Danina Buehler and Ulrich Orth, please correct me if I have butchered those names terribly, but they have used this term terminal decline to describe just some of that relationship ending and that fading out that can sometimes be for years, depending on the length of your relationship. Mm-hmm. And they've also described that it's typically this period of terminal decline, and then at the very end, there's like this sharper decline where it's a lot more turbulent or a lot more distant. That happens, it can be weeks or months at the end there. And that's something that I also see reflected in the calls. Sometimes I'll ask the question, where did you start to see the relationship crumble? When did you start to notice issues pop up that led to the end?
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say, well, I think it started, at this point years ago, but then it got really bad at this point. So I can see that reflected in a lot of the calls too.
Yeah, and I ask similar questions
Mm-hmm.
too. I'm like, okay, what happened and when, because it's important to have an idea of how long the relationship was going well for and how well it was going in that time before you start to find the issues and what those issues are. We see a lot of similar patterns in the issues, but every situation is different. So you're going to find that a relationship, if you don't have the skills to stay connected, make that person feel safe, make that person feel like they can come to you, make that person feel loved, they will start to feel distant, because if we can't feel close to the person that we love, it causes us physical pain.
Mm-hmm. And I know it sounds extreme, but there's actually some truth to this. When we experience that emotional pain, it can be in similar areas of the brain as physical pain. And sometimes you can experience psychosomatic symptoms, physical symptoms of that separation anxiety, of that distance. It can come in a lot of different ways. For Craig, it comes in diarrhea.
I've talked about it. And night sweats, don't forget those.
That's your palpitations.
And my stomach and my chest area making horrible,
nausea,
bizarre noises.
But this is real.
I sounded like a haunted mansion, and I really did. I mean, if I recorded it, you guys would be laughing at how weird my body makes all these noises. It's so bizarre. So don't feel bad, because you probably aren't even experiencing it that bad, okay? So I had it worse than you. So, a lot of times when you're in a relationship that's newer, right, and it starts to fall apart, well, obviously the attachment issues are going to come up, right? People attach differently. Mm-hmm. And maybe one person is feeling too overwhelmed by the connection, or one person is feeling too neglected by the relationship. And so because people have different needs or different expectations from their partner, it can lead to feeling hurt, disappointed, overwhelmed. It just depends upon what is going on in your particular situation. But then one person or both start to feel like, well, this isn't going to work. It was so fun and exciting in the beginning, but now I just don't feel like I'm going to get my needs met, and it's going to hurt me to stay.
Right, and attachment style has a lot to do with this. So sometimes you'll see somebody who's avoidant in a relationship, somebody who has more avoidant attachment style, and because they have this fear of intimacy, over time the relationship doesn't get closer, but instead you grow apart. You know, they fear taking the relationship to the next level because it's the next level of vulnerability. You might have somebody who's more anxious. Maybe you have an anxious partner and they have this tendency more towards codependency. So they might be very dependent on their partner, and that stifles their partner's independence, that stifles their own independence, their own sense of self, their partner's sense of self, and they kind of lose themselves in the relationship in a way that, you know, it can cause depression, it can cause other mental health issues, and it can lead to the end of the relationship because of that. On the flip side, you can have an anxious partner who is really afraid of pushing their avoidant partner away.
Sure.
And so they don't bring up any issues, leading them to be very inauthentic in the relationship, leading to even more distance. Right? So conflict in itself isn't necessarily the thing that causes breakups. Conflict can actually be a thing that causes a lot more connection. You know, even if you think about some of the conflicts you might have had with maybe family or friends, you learn so much about somebody else through conflict. And sometimes you can even earn a greater respect, depending on how the conflict is handled. You can earn a greater respect for the other person. You can have a deeper connection because of going through those things together. So it's less about the conflict itself and more about how is it handled, how are we able to face each other authentically. Now, I want to talk a little bit about growing together versus growing apart. For newer relationships, sometimes you discover early on that your goals, your values, they're not aligned. You might realize, man, we have very different lifestyles. We have very different goals or where we want to get to. We have very different 5-year plans, right? So you might notice that early on, and that might be the decline.
Yeah, that could be some real deal breakers, right? You want 3 kids and I don't want any, or you want 50 kids and I only want 3.
Right.
You know, there are a lot of different deal breakers, and ultimately it can make your partner or person think, well, how are we going to wind up together if we just see things so differently and there's no kind of middle ground? You know?
And the kicker for longer term relationships is that people can change. People's values, their beliefs, they can change over time. And so maybe at 20 they wanted 0 kids, but maybe at 30 they want 5, right? So these things can change over time, and that can lead to growing apart when your goals and your values aren't staying in line.
Absolutely.
In the long run. So growing together can be tough. It's also a choice because you have to have enough adaptability and flexibility with your partner while still being able to be independent and be yourself and have your own ideas. And that is so hard. That is really challenging.
Then, of course, there are other types of things can come up, such as external forces, external people, family. Family is a big one.
Family is a big one.
Oh my gosh, so many family members, mothers. No, I don't want you to marry that person. I want you to marry somebody from our own religion. I don't want you to marry her. I don't want you to marry somebody that's had kids already. A lot of times people will give their opinions on who they think you should be with. So there can be a lot of family pressure. Illnesses. You could have a spouse or a partner that has illnesses that leaves them, you know, overwhelmed by the stress of it. You know, so they can't be thinking about a relationship so much when they're worried about their own health, right? Or the health of maybe family member, right? Could be their parents. They feel like they're responsible and obligated for them. I just had a call yesterday where this woman was responsible for 3 elderly people in her family. It was like her grandmother, her aunt, and her father. I mean, you can imagine, like, she ran a business and then coming home in the evening and have to take care of 3 elderly people. Like, that would be incredibly stressful and overwhelming and make you feel like you don't even have energy for that, let alone a relationship. You got work, the stress of a career, pressure at work. Maybe that person is not doing well at work and there's pressure that they could lose their job. So that causes financial stress. Men are very tied to their career. How many men have you seen that are struggling with their job? They lose their job. They haven't had a job in a long time.
Right. Or they invest so much in their work that they're thinking, I need to be a provider for my family. I'm going to work so hard so that we can get closer in the future and have the life that we want. Meanwhile, this entire time, their partner is feeling emotionally starved. So that's another situation that I see often too, where it grows apart because one partner is saying, hey, I need some here and now connection. And the other person's thinking, well, I'm building for our future here.
And many men, their self-esteem is so tied to their work. I mean, we hear it constantly. He's not doing well with his career, and then he's just beating himself up, and he feels like a failure and feels like, oh, you deserve better because I can't even provide for you. So that's a big one that comes up a lot. School. I mean, I see a lot of breakups because of school, right? Somebody's very stressed out.
A test coming up. Or
like a graduate program or like a doctor, or, you know. I see a lot of breakups with that. So just understand that relationships take a lot of care. And it's kind of like a child in a way that you constantly have to be attuned to it and looking after it. You can't let it wander away. You always have to be cognizant of it. And it takes two people to make that happen. And oftentimes one person doesn't have the energy or the emotional availability to do that.
Right. Right. And individuation is also a big part of this too. If your partner isn't individuated from their family enough to be able to prioritize your relationship, then that can be a problem in the longer term. That can be another thing that grows you apart. Now, there's some cultures where it's really communal and, you know, both parties of the couple have an understanding of that. In fact, they both move into mom's house, you know, and they live happily ever after. But, you know, in this very multicultural world that we're in now, you know, sometimes there can be blended couples from different cultures, and that can be a challenge too, to understand just those differences and how to make it work when you have a very, I don't know, Italian family and you have a very American family on the other side, right? How do we make that work and blend?
Or kids. There could be step-kids involved. And then you've got parenting difficulties where you have differences in how to parent or discipline that child or children. Could be a lot. Or the kids are trying to sabotage the relationship too.
Yeah.
Right? I saw that in a call this week where the kids were trying to sabotage. You know, and they would intentionally start fights or, in fact, I had a call last week, too. I was thinking of one earlier this week, and I had one last week, where kids were, like, going out of their way to sabotage the connection in the relationship. So, that could be another big one.
Yeah, a lot of things happen. So, when a relationship has faded, when that relationship is gradually fading out, it's really important to be able to return to your element. What do I mean by this? Returning to your element.
Fire, wind, dirt. Is that?
No, but being able to return to those things that make you feel like you. Those things that make you feel most connected to yourself. Those things that make you feel most grounded. A lot of times rethinking about in the beginning what connected the two of you to start with. You know, what attracted you to your partner and what was attractive to your partner. You know, returning back to that element. Those things that bring you enjoyment. A lot of times we forget just that initial attraction, or sometimes the things that we were initially attracted to, Esther Pearl talks about this.
That's so true.
Are the things that end up causing the breakup, right?
I love that guy because he's so funny. He's always making jokes.
Can never take anything seriously.
You're never serious. It's so true.
So sometimes over time, that thing that we love turns into that thing that really is a thorn on our sides and annoys us. So being aware of that, being able to identify that, trying to go back to the element is really important.
Yeah. There are so many things that will happen in day-to-day life that will impact a connection or impact the ability for somebody to stay connected, both you and your partner. And those things can really make that connection just weaken. And as you know, you have to be cognizant. You really have to think about it and take care of it. You know, a lot of times, just life, we feel stress, we feel pressure, and that can really do damage to ourselves or to our partner. And that can make them struggle with their own mental health, their own depression, or yours. So it's not easy to manage life sometimes. There's going to be struggles in life. You're going to have people like that get sick, you know, or people, you're going to lose people. You're going to lose your job. You're going to worry about finances. There's going to be a housing collapse, a stock market collapse, a recession,
Jeez.
a depression.
Greg, no.
Or those things could happen. Hopefully not anytime soon.
Right. So being able to regulate yourself, being able to manage stress is one of the best things that you can do, not only for yourself, but for your couple, for yourself, your partner, your future partner. That is huge. You know, another big way that I see relationships gradually fade out is when both parties are under stress and they have trouble, first of all, regulating on their own. Second of all, being able to co-regulate, being able to depend on their partner and say, hey, man, I've had such a stressful day. Like, can I vent to you for a little bit? And the person goes, yeah, I had a stressful day too.
Yeah.
I'm here. I can make a container for your feelings. You can make a container for mine. That is one of the, most difficult things that a couple can go through when both people are under stress, under grief. It's really, really challenging.
And it's so important that we are playful in our relationships. Relationships are supposed to be fun. You're supposed to want to play with your partner and have a good time and laugh and joke. And as Margaret would say, double the joy and divide the grief. Play is so important, but we feel judged a lot of times. We don't feel like we can be ourselves and be silly. We just did that email coaching where the guy was getting judged for being silly, quote unquote. Now, we don't know what silly meant in that case. I had some questions, but you have to be able to be playful and fun. And even with like us on the channel, we try and be playful and fun. And even though the topics can be sensitive and serious, like, our personality is going to come through in the videos. We don't want to be robots. We're not interested in just reading, a teleprompter.
Yeah. And being able to focus on that quality time. Playfulness can be a really great way to make quality time or to make time quality, however you want to put it. And that really means setting aside intentional time to focus on one another. So even in that, previous example of the person who works a lot, focusing on your partnership's future, it's important, even if you do want a stable future for your partnership, to be intentional and make sure that the relationship is being nurtured.
Absolutely. What a lot of you guys don't know is I make Victoria play with Star Wars figures for 30 minutes before we start filming.
It's not true.
You're right, it's not true. It's 45 minutes.
I would know a lot more about Star Wars if that were the case.
You got me. Got me, you did.
Is that Chewbacca again?
Nah, this one. I don't know how I deal with this.
Being involved in a shared activity can also be something that helps you grow together. For some of you who have leaned into codependency, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you need your individual activities. So I want to put that out there too. But being able to be involved in community. Sometimes relationships can stagnate because you're not involving community. You're just depending on your partner to meet all of your needs. And there's some needs, like that need for, social support, that your partner might not be able to give 100% all of the time. So you have to be aware of that. And another big one is to practice gratefulness. This is cheesy as ever, but it's very important. Being able to be grateful for what you have. There's probably many of you in partnerships that your partner is a catch. There's many things that you can be grateful for about your partner, and being able to look at your partner with admiration is a very, very, very important quality of a healthy relationship.
Absolutely. Making a relationship last in the long run is not easy. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of investment. It takes a lot of mental health and choices. So you have to consciously do those things. Otherwise, it will fade. You will become distant and you will become strangers even if you're in a relationship together. So you want to consider all these things. And of course, all the stuff that we teach on the channel is trying to teach you how to improve your mental health and your connections and keep your connections strong. And making changes to your behavior is a huge way you're going to do that. So hopefully this one has been helpful to you. And of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Zoom calls. Coach Victoria is also available for doing Zoom calls.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.